Video game urban legends. I've got no time to spare today. I'm working on a few things at once and just need to get at least one of them to leave the workbench. I've got like 2 Red Dead videos, an iceberg, and a couple other ideas I refuse to start until at least one thing is released. So, what could be more fun than urban legends? Though, when talking about this, I do feel the need to clarify just a little bit because the term urban legend seems to have a couple definitions. So I'll slow down just this once. At its core, an urban legend is a story passed around, usually by someone who experienced the thing, or they know someone else who totally experienced the thing. Due to this nature, there's this weird gray area separating urban legends and creepypasta. There's a line there somewhere, but it's hard to define. When I was compiling information for this video, I had to really decide what my barrier was personally. For example, a game like Sonic.exe does not qualify as an urban legend to me, but it is obviously a creepypasta. I don't think many people thought this was a real Sonic game. There's not really any mystery there. However, in my opinion, I believe that Herobrine could actually count. This ruling is ultimately just up to my instinct, and unfortunately, I can't really say every title ruling will be the most logical, as it's all my silly brain deciding, and that guy tends to make some whack decisions. The reason I think Herobrine could actually count, though, is that there's a separation between the story and the fan content. The story itself, we all know, details an encounter in Minecraft with a strange extra Steve who displayed odd behavior, like stalking the player, creating unnatural constructions such as sand pyramids in the ocean, and removing leaves from trees. The user who posted this on 4chan attempted to start a topic about the encounter in the Minecraft forum, only to claim to have it be repeatedly deleted, followed by a private message from a non-existent user named Herobrine telling them to stop. It included a screenshot of Herobrine and everything, and had a lot of people actually concerned that this was in the game. It does obviously get a bit campy when further research by the writer revealed Herobrine was the name of Notch's dead brother that never existed. But the basis of the story is solid. It got so big, Minecraft itself is in on it and has repeatedly included in the game's patch notes that they have finally removed Herobrine. I didn't even hear about this first from the internet. One of my friends at school told me about it. I genuinely believed he was in the game until I was like 14. Speaking of ones I believed in, I actually thought that a bunch of kids in Japan offed themselves because of Lavender Town's music. Now this one, I did come across online, but I found it one of those do not listen unless you want to die type posts. Lavender Town syndrome has been talked to death, but most urban legends have, it's just the name of the game. But it was said that there is a peak of death and illness in kids between 7 and 12 who had played Pokemon Red and Green in Japan. The catalyst for these deaths seemed to be the music found in Lavender Town, as its high frequencies could only be heard among children and young teens. If the kids didn't die, they complained of headaches and other afflictions after being exposed to it. This caused Pokemon to change the frequency of the music, which is why if you listen to it now, you're fine. I feel like the addition of, oh, they fixed it so it won't happen anymore, but like, it totally did, is absolutely what sold me on it, as I had no way of going to Japan in 1996. I was not born yet, so I took it at face value. I mean, if Pokemon fixed it, it had to have been an issue. In reality, it just seems like kind of pulling an Electric Soldier Porygon. The whole story has big, your friend's older brother told you this story, so you wouldn't want to play his game, and you believed him energy. While we're talking about some of these titans of video game urban legends, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention these two from Mario. Though, less about Mario, let's talk about Luigi. There's no doubt that you've heard about either one of these, and I even talked about one of them in my last video, so you can check that out too. The L is Real 2401 and the Hanging Luigi from Luigi's Mansion were everywhere. L is Real refers to Super Mario 64. There's a courtyard at the back of Princess Peach's castle that has a statue of a power star, where Mario spawns from if he's ejected from the nearby course, Big Boo's Haunt. The statue has a plaque with some pretty hard to read inscriptions, and some people claimed they could make out the phrase L is Real 2401, leading them to think that Luigi was hidden in the game somewhere. The rumor I heard was that if you ran around the statue 2,401 times, he'd spawn, but there just had to be something with those numbers that made Luigi pop up. Of course, he didn't, but that didn't stop people from believing that one day he might. Then, when Mario 64 came to the DS, people got their wish, as Luigi was now playable. And luckily for the Luigi fans, there's nothing as grim in that game as people saw in Luigi's Mansion. It was said that Luigi actually died in this game, due to a glitch in the telephone room in the fourth area of the game. Luigi receives a phone call from Professor Egad. Lightning strikes, illuminating the room and projecting Luigi's shadow onto the wall. But his shadow looks a little weird, kinda looks like he's hanging. Combine that with this unused beta game over screen, and Luigi's fate does seem a little grim on this one. It was a hard knock life for all of us. Well, Luigi's. But you know what makes me feel better? I bet you can guess. I know. I'm determined to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's in every video, but it worked out perfectly here, as there's two hidden animatronics I want to talk about. I think every FNAF fan will immediately know what I'm talking about, but Sparky the dog was a supposed hidden animatronic in the early days of the game's lifespan. Of course, after it was mentioned, screenshots began to pop up on Tumblr. According to those that had seen him, Sparky the one-armed dog was non-violent and would never attack the player, only appearing occasionally in the backstage doorway. However, it was eventually revealed as a hoax, with all the images being photoshopped. Surprising. Five Nights at Freddy's already has its share of hidden animatromas, so this wasn't exactly unfeasible, but this next one always just seemed a little silly to me. But I do have a big brain and fully believed in Herobrine in Lavender Town. But this was just a step too far. The purple guy animatronic was supposedly found in early 2015 when a YouTube video surfaced that reportedly showed an animatronic of him, the main antagonist of the franchise. The appearance of the purple animatronic was preceded by the phone ringing. After the phone rang, the suit briefly flashed on screen, slumped against the wall of the office in a manner similar to Golden Freddy. Extremely similar, actually, as it was soon revealed that the animatronic was simply a photoshopped image of Golden Freddy with a purple color scheme and Chica's head. I know I sound soured about this one, but I always thought this guy looked so silly. But then, when I'd be up late looking at the Reddit to Theorycraft, I'd see people trying to work this thing into the lore, and I would be unreasonably annoyed. I no longer look at the Reddit to Theorycraft, as I already know everything. Speaking of mysterious purple characters, there was an interesting bit in the Animal Crossing community where people were reporting a strange new villager. After being released, fans of the original Animal Crossing for the GameCube began spreading stories of an evil villager named Brutus, who would move into the player's towns if the player was away for too long. Brutus, also known as Bertus, was allegedly a purple dog with a black shirt and glowing red eyes. Upon moving in, he'd do some classic Animal Crossing things like speak in binary and crash the game when the player enters his house. Only one screenshot of Brutus is known, and it's surprisingly known to be a fake. It would be pretty wild if Nintendo decided to just add this guy in, though. I mean, people thought the villagers in Animal Crossing New Horizons were too nice, so maybe it's time for Brutus to come back. Let's get a wild card in there. Maybe if you look hard enough. He already is. He's not, but who could really be surprised? Video game covers can hold a lot of mystery. Though there's nothing more mysterious than real-life consequences from being on a game cover. That's right, we're talking the Madden Curse. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know about football. The closest I ever got to the stadium lights was on Friday nights, and that was from the bandstand while I played saxophone. But it doesn't take a hardcore sportsman to look at some numbers. From Madden 99 to 2011, it seemed like every athlete featured on the cover of the game would have something bad happen to them during that season. Each of these years, the player featured on the cover of Madden was injured at some point, causing them to miss games or have less than stellar seasons for them. Which was strange, because everyone who was placed on the cover was done so because they were a star at that moment, an embodiment of football. I think this is one of the most interesting examples in this video. I mean, this thing was pretty well known. It got so bad that for Madden 08, at first, LaDainian Tomlinson was chosen to be on the cover, but fans petitioned against it, fearing the curse. They fought back so hard, Tomlinson was released off the cover. After 2011, the curse gets a bit spotty. Not every single player now has something happen, but still, that's quite the long streak of coincidence. Most of these legends seem to be limited to the group that they are in, but the Madden Curse felt so real that the everyday person might know about it. I feel that also is the case for this next topic. I'd like to preface by saying that these previous things I've talked about have all been urban legends about video games. That's all well and good, but what about video games that are the legends themselves? You know I had to include it. So, let's talk about Polybius for a second. The story starts in 1981, when an unheard-of new arcade game appeared in several suburbs of Portland. The game was popular to the point of addiction, with lines forming around the machines and often resulting in fights over who could play next. The machines were frequently visited by men in black, who collected unknown data from the machines, testing responses to the game's psychoactive effects. Players supposedly suffered from a series of unpleasant side effects, including seizures, amnesia, insomnia, night terrors, and hallucinations. Approximately 1 month after its supposed release in 1981, Polybius is said to have disappeared without a trace. The company named in most accounts of the game is Sinislokin, which I definitely didn't say right. This seems to mean sense delete or sensory deprivation, though the way this is set up isn't standard German. The game has the same name as the classical Greek historian Polybius, born in Arcadia and known for his assertion that historians should never report what they cannot verify through interviews with eyewitnesses. Despite all this information, it's extremely likely that Polybius didn't exist. There is some truth in the story. Kids were getting sick from marathon arcade gaming sessions. There were also some government investigations at arcades in Portland at the time, because some arcades there seemed to have problems with crime at the locations, causing FBI intrigue. All the small truths here seem like the perfect setup to make a story like Polybius. It's no surprise that someone decided to assign these consequences to something so mysterious. There are no records of official Polybius arcades though, and people who grew up with it in the area don't seem to remember it. Similar to Polybius, the last thing I want to talk about today is a game called Kill Switch. The legend here is about whether the game actually exists or not. It was supposedly made by a Czechoslovakian company called Karvina Corporation, but only 5,000 copies were made. Another interesting feature of this game is that apparently it could only be played once. Once the player had died, the game erased itself from the system, making it unplayable. There have been games that can manipulate save files, such as Doki Doki Literature Club, or games that only allow you to one playthrough, like One Shot, but completely deleting itself is one of the features that makes Kill Switch so interesting. The game would even give you 2 characters to choose from, despite you only getting to play as one of them. Of course, with it being so obscure, it was found that this game is also not real, but interestingly can be traced back as a short story by author Carrion Valente. Just like Polybius, you can still play this game online though, thanks to the work of the fans of the story. One thing that really stuck out to me when I was researching this video is how much the internet has really changed the game for some of these stories. Obviously, I talked about the creepypasta urban legend connection earlier, but with examples like Polybius and Kill Switch, these stories, in a way, became true. The fact that you can play them whenever you want now adds a different element. Honestly, it's hard to have an urban legend anymore. You can just look up any question you might have about a game. I mean, someone's probably already data mined the game and looked through every inch of it. As a Five Nights at Freddy's fan myself, the first thing many people do when a game comes out, or is even teased, is go through the code and try to find any secrets in there. I'm guilty of this, and I analyze everything way too hard. It's the age of information. We can find out whatever we want pretty much if we just look. It is a little sad though that the age of the schoolyard rumor is fading out. There's a certain charm about these things, and just not knowing whether your friend who said he found me under that truck was lying or telling the truth. Anyway, have you guys seen the Sans animatronic in Sister Location?